My understanding of the submissions by the prosecution are that they have invited this court to look at the aggravating factors in this matter. And they have outlined them as follows, and I'll read them out. The prosecution invites this court to note that on 20th day of September 2018, the deceased Monica Kimani lifeless body was found inside a bathtub with her throat brutally slit and hands tied. The court is invited to note that the post-mortem report produced by Dr. Peter Ndegwa confirmed that the deceased Monica Kimani died due to severe neck injuries due to a sharp force. The court is being invited to consider that there was serious and grievous harm occasioned to the deceased. The court has been invited to consider that the weapon used was a dangerous weapon and that the offense was an intricate planning. There was intricate planning of the offense. And in capital letters, the court has been invited to note that there was no degree of provocation from the deceased person towards the offender. And finally, the court has been invited to note that after commission of the offense, there was an attempt to conceal the evidence. Note finally, there is one more. The court has been invited to consider that the crime had serious physiological and physical harm to the victim and the family. Based on these factors, the prosecution argues that this court should mete out the sentence as provided for under the law. They have invited this court to note that despite the decision in the case of Muratetu, the only thing that case did was to declare, and I would put it clearly, that the mandatory, and I will repeat, the mandatory nature of the death sentence is unconstitutional, and that it did not declare the death sentence unconstitutional. And so without going into other areas of submissions which are reflected in my judgment hearing, the prosecution invited this court to pronounce a death sentence. The victim's family, in their submissions dated 7th of March, drew the court's attention to the sentence provided for the offense of murder, which sentence is stipulated under Section 204, which says that a person convicted of the offense of murder shall suffer death. They led the court through the objectives of sentence, which I've spoken to, and therefore I will not repeat. And they invited the court to take cognizance of the fact that the accused person before the court did not play a peripheral role in the commission of the offense, but he was the main perpetrator of the offense. In that, they are saying that he did not only steal an ID card of a third party, but used it to disguise his identity, changed his clothes and went to the deceased's house and brutally murdered her. They described the murder as being cold-blooded, ghastly, and barbaric. They have invited this court to consider that no amount of monetary compensation can ever bring the deceased back. And they have invited this court to note that the death of the deceased occasioned the family a lot of economic loss, as the business of the family that she was manning in South Sudan collapsed, and that it was the only means of income for the family. Finally, the accused person filed their submissions in form of mitigation dated 10th of March. And I think it's important I take a bit of time in our understanding of what the accused person said, because he is the one on trial. So I will not summarize too much his mitigation, and also for the parties to appreciate that I've taken it into consideration in totality. The accused says that he's aware that nothing he says at this stage will relieve the pain of the deceased family. And he says the lesser he says, the better. He says that he expresses his sadness that such a tragic loss of life on extreme circumstances bordering, and this caught my attention, okay? He says that he expresses his sadness that such a tragic and careless loss of life on extremely circumstances bordering on an act of absolute madness that is beyond understanding, even to him, as he stands there convicted. He says that it is his prayer that the deceased family will find peace and that her soul will rest in eternal peace. He says that he understands the terrible fear and pain that the deceased must have underwent in the hands of the perpetrator, and he cannot even perceive the same. He joins the victim's family by saying that he does appreciate that monetary compensation cannot relieve the pain of the loss of a loved one.